Please adhere to YouTube's selected guidelines before viewing the content of this video. I do not encourage or condone any products, actions, or behaviors shown in this video. All videos are produced in a safe, professional, and controlled environment. Please do not attempt to replicate any actions performed during the video. All actions are performed by professionals.
Alrighty, so a couple days ago, I decided to smoke half a cigarette. That's all I wanted at that time. I didn't want any more than half a cigarette. Just half a cigarette because I just wanted just the perfect amount of nicotine to get me going good before I drove home. I didn't want too much nicotine, just a little bit. And so as such, I smoked half a cigarette. Now, I'm not somebody who likes to smoke half a cigarette and then never smoke the other half of it. I like to make sure that I get my money's worth out of my tobacco products. And I like to make sure that the money I spend on tobacco products goes to good use. And so as such, anytime I just smoke half a cigarette or part of a cigarette in general, and I don't smoke the full cigarette, what I tend to do is I tend to put the remaining portion of the cigarette in my cigarette butt disposal right here to smoke at a later time. And so as such, I did exactly that with this half-smoked cigarette from a couple days ago as well. However, when I opened up my cigarette butt disposal to smoke the remaining portion of that cigarette at a later time, I found the cigarette to be broken, completely dead, massacred. Just rest in peace. And I was initially very disappointed. I was very dismayed because I didn't want to smoke a full cigarette at that time. I just wanted half a cigarette. I didn't want a ton of nicotine. I just wanted enough to get me going good. And I thought that just smoking the remaining half of that cigarette was going to be the perfect way to do that. And so as such, finding that half-smoked cigarette that I had been looking forward to so much to be broken really was a huge disappointment. But very quickly, that disappointment and dismay turned to intrigue when I had the idea to make a video titled, I re-rolled a broken half-smoked cigarette into a new cigarette and then smoked it. And that is the video that I'm making today. And my disappointment and dismay turned to intrigue because I very quickly realized that if I re-roll a cigarette that's already been half smoked, it might be a little bit more interesting than not, although it also might not be. But the tobacco in a half-smoked cigarette is already going to have some tar on it, and so it's already going to taste a little bit different than cigarette from a non-smoked cigarette, along with the fact that if I use the same cigarette filter from the cigarette that is half smoked and that filter that's already half used is a couple days old, how's it gonna taste? How's it all gonna be? How's the cigarette that I'm gonna be rolling today with a half smoked, broken cigarette actually gonna be? Well, I certainly am very excited to find out. And I do think that the cigarette has a decent likelihood of giving me an interesting smoke, but also a very decent likelihood of giving me not so much of an interesting smoke as well, as honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if this experience is just like, well, smoking a, honestly, just half-smoked cigarette, and there's really nothing else interesting going on. But I'm hoping that by re-rolling the half-smoked cigarette into a new paper, that it maybe becomes a little bit more interesting than not. Today, I'm going to be rolling the half-smoked cigarette, which is a American Spirit Full-Bodied Red, with my raw rolling machine right here, as I am not particularly good at rolling by hand, I will admit. I'm going to be using the filter from the American Spirit Full-Bodied Red as well, and today the paper I'm going to be using are some Elements ultra-thin rice papers. But I do suppose, without further ado, the first thing I actually need to do is to go ahead and get my cigarette butt pouch all opened up so I can actually go ahead and show you guys the broken cigarette in all of its glory. So let's go ahead and just get that opened up. We can see the broken cigarette right there. Let's go ahead and just get that out. We can see, yeah, it's quite broken if I do say so myself. I mean, like, I could just rip this off and dump this and then just smoke that, but then I'd be wasting a good amount of perfectly fine tobacco. I don't want to waste that, so I've got to re-roll it, you know what I'm saying? I've got to re-roll it. I am thinking that the cigarette I'm going to be rolling today might be a little bit looser than not, just simply because I'm not going to be using a full cigarette's worth of tobacco for this cigarette, but we're going to see how this goes, you know what I'm saying? We're going to see how this goes. The first thing I need to do is I need to go ahead and get all the tobacco out of this cigarette. So let's go ahead and just rip that just like that. And it is a little bit windy today, so I'm going to be trying to do this as quickly as possible. I'm going to trying to get all the tobacco out, and I'm going to be trying to roll this cigarette as quickly as possible so I make sure that the tobacco doesn't just fly everywhere. That would absolutely suck, because then I would have no control over anything, and I would be forced to, well, not smoke the rest of my broken half-smoked cigarette, which would really suck because I really don't want to waste the remaining portion of this cigarette. I should have left my cigarette butt disposal open so I can actually throw the rest of my paper in here. So throw that paper in there. And then now I'm going to go ahead and just get the remaining tobacco out of the remaining portion of the cigarette right here. Just get all that out. And then I'm just going to go ahead and rip the paper from the filter as well. Almost all the tobacco is out. Not quite all of it yet. A little bit more left, a little bit more left. There's still a little bit more left. How is there more left? There's a bit more than I thought. I'm just gonna go and rip that now. There we go. Just like that, we can see this filter has indeed already been used. Quite obviously, I'm gonna go and shove the rest of this paper in my cigarette butt disposal as well. And now, without further ado, I'm gonna go ahead and get one of my Elements ultra thin rice papers all out. So let's go and get that all out. And let's go ahead. Trying to talk with paper in my mouth. That doesn't really work. I was just holding that in my mouth so it doesn't fly away, because it is quite windy today, if I do say so myself. But now let's go ahead and get my raw rolling machine all opened up. And let's go ahead and now I'm just gonna shove the paper under my rolling tray just real quick, just so it doesn't fly away. And now I'm gonna go ahead and get some of all of the tobacco in my rolling machine, starting off with the filter though. Of course, the filter has to be the first thing I put in the rolling machine. And now I'm just gonna go ahead and just scoop all of the tobacco from the broken cigarette into my rolling machine. And the tobacco looks pretty normal. It doesn't look like it's got an exorbitant amount of tar on it or anything like that kind of thing. Maybe the tar in the tobacco before the point where I stub the cigarette out, maybe that tar doesn't like actually stick to tobacco itself very well. Maybe it just kind of gets caught in the filter. I'm not sure in all honesty. Well, I guess tar and smoke, it doesn't really stick to tobacco. It's just kind of sticking to the filter just because, well, that's kind of what the filter is designed to do. So, yeah, maybe this will literally just be like smoking, well, just a normal half-smoked cigarette that you just relit a little while after smoking half of it. I'm not sure in all honesty. Would not surprise me at all if this is not an interesting experience, but it also wouldn't surprise me if this is an interesting experience. And my paper's trying to roll away. I'm gonna go ahead and just try to get the rest of the tobacco in my rolling machine as well. Make sure I don't waste any at all. And now, go and grab my rolling paper once again, and I'm just gonna go ahead and fold my rolling machine over, and I'm just gonna go ahead and just start rolling it just a little bit kind of thing, just like that. And my paper is trying to run away. I think I'm just gonna roll it one or two more times. And now I'm gonna go ahead and stick the paper in there, and I'm gonna go ahead and actually try to get it all rolled up. I'm just trying to make sure I'm using the right side of the paper, and I am. So let's go ahead and just do this real quick. There we go. And there we go, just like that. Let's go ahead and get this all opened up now. And let's go ahead and take a look at what this cigarette actually looks like. I will admit, it's not the greatest roll, and there is a decent amount of tobacco falling out, but it's not the biggest deal. I think I've done a sufficient job of wasting the least amount of tobacco as I possibly can. The first thing I notice about this cigarette, I've got some tobacco on the table. I'm just gonna go ahead and blow off real quick. So now that I've done that, the first thing that I'm noticing about this cigarette is, one, that there is some tobacco stuck to the outside of the cigarette for whatever reason. I'm not exactly sure in all honesty. And two, that I accidentally pushed the filter up just a little bit kind of thing. What I'm gonna do first off is I'm gonna take my lighter out of my pocket, and I'm just gonna go ahead and just quickly burn that just a little bit away kind of thing. Just like that kind of thing, just so I have a nice even little area right there. And as a whole, this cigarette seems to be, from what I can tell, more tightly rolled than not. I'm thinking it's going to be a pretty decent smoke, and I'm not expecting it to be bad by any means. I was a little bit afraid just due to the due to having less tobacco in it than normal, I was afraid that this cigarette might be more loosely rolled than normal. It doesn't appear to be that way though, probably because the half-smoked cigarette that I used for this video was an American Spirit full-bodied red, and American Spirits have a bunch of tobacco in them, so that's probably why this cigarette is perfectly fine. But yeah, well, this looks like it's going to be a good smoke, but I do suppose there is only one way for me to find out. And so as such, I do suppose, without further ado, I should probably go ahead and get this cigarette all lit up, and I should probably go ahead and find out just how good or just how bad re-rolling a half-smoked, broken cigarette into a new cigarette actually is, and I should probably let you guys know how this experience is as a whole and whether it's worth doing if you don't want to waste half a cigarette. Although I do suppose I am also using a paper, so does it cancel out? I don't know, not quite. I think the paper is worth less than this cigarette in all honesty, but maybe it does cancel out to some degree. I think the first thing I'm actually gonna do though, I need a little bit of a sip of water. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that real quick. I'm gonna have a little bit of a sip of water, and then after that, I'm gonna go ahead and get my cigarette all lit up. So now that I've had a little bit of a sip of water, let's go ahead and now get this cigarette right here all lit up, and let's go ahead and find out just how good or just how bad a broken, half-smoked cigarette re-rolled into a new cigarette actually is. Yes sir, you know what I'm saying? And I just completely realized, I completely forgot to grab a screenshot for this video at all. I even had it in my notes for this video. Grab a screenshot before I get the cigarette all lit up, and I didn't. I completely forgot. I cannot believe me. Well, either way though, right off the bat, this cigarette tastes much better than not. And I'd actually have to say it does have a slightly different taste than your normal American Spirit Red, but I'd have to say that taste is not because it's a half-smoked cigarette, it's just because I'm using a different paper. The taste of some particular parts of the taste of the tobacco, some particular intricacies are coming through a little bit more distinctly than not. The American Spirit full-bodied reds, in my personal opinion, have a very nice sort of, I'd have to say, very fruity, citrusy, slightly tangy at times, sort of slightly nutty taste. It's very much a Virginia Burley blend of tobacco in my personal opinion. And the taste of the cigarette is very similar. However, I'd have to say the fruity taste is a little bit sweeter than it is when you're smoking an American Spirit normally, and I think that's just due to the paper. There's probably less paper taste in this cigarette just because I'm using the Elements Ultra Thin Rice papers, and the Elements Ultra Thin Rice papers have no taste to them at all kind of thing. Might not be able to notice the taste of the paper when I'm actually smoking a prepackaged American Spirit full-bodied red, but I'm sure it's there. But I'm not only noticing slightly different intricacies to the actual taste of the tobacco itself, but I'm also just noticing a different taste to the tobacco itself. And I'm not sure if it's coming from the tobacco or if it's coming from the filter, but I am noticing a little bit of a tarry taste. I'm definitely getting a little bit of a tarry taste, and I have since I got the cigarette lit up. Of course, that's not normal for a fresh cigarette. It's not normal for a fresh cigarette to already have a tarry taste right at the beginning kind of thing. I haven't smoked much of this cigarette at all, and it already has a tarry taste. If I had to guess, that taste is probably from both the tobacco and from the filter, but probably, if I had to guess, mostly from the filter, as the filter is already partly used. And so I'm thinking that tarry taste is probably coming from the filter. But honestly, if I hadn't used the filter from the cigarette, from the broken cigarette, I think, honestly, I wouldn't be able to tell this apart from just using the tobacco from a non-half-smoked American Spirit full-bodied red, in all honesty. This is not a bad experience at all. And in my personal opinion, this is a very legitimate way to make sure you get the most money out of your tobacco products. If you accidentally break a cigarette, why not re-roll it into a new cigarette and then smoke it? Even if it's half-smoked, even if you accidentally break a half-smoked cigarette, it could very well be worth it to just roll into a new cigarette and smoke it, just to make sure you don't have to waste that cigarette and everything like that kind of thing. Not a bad smoke at all. And it's actually much more interesting than not. Actually, re-rolling the American Spirit Full Body Reds with the Elements Ultra Thin Rice Paper is really good. Really, really, really good, I ain't gonna lie. I mean, like, the taste of the fruity taste from the tobacco is just coming through all that much more distinctly. And I mean, like, the nutty taste is still in there, but... And while I do really like the nutty taste, and it's still very much an undertone, the sweetness from the fruity taste is just, man, all that much more potent. This is more sweet than I'm used to an American Spirit Full Body Red being, and I've been smoking a decent amount of American Spirit Full Body Reds as of late, so my memory is not incorrect. I hope, at least. This is definitely sweeter. And I think it's just because probably the paper from the prepackaged American Spirit Full Body Reds are probably giving a little bit of a paper taste, an indistinguishable paper taste that combines very well with the actual taste of the tobacco itself, but nonetheless, they're giving a paper taste that kind of tones down the sweetness of the cigarette and maybe makes it a little bit more sour. I've noticed paper tastes tend to make cigarettes a little bit more sour, and now thinking back on it, the American Spirit Full Body Reds do have a little bit of sourness to them as well, whereas this, rolled with this paper, while there is a little bit of sourness, it's more of a tangy sour from the actual tobacco itself. It's not like just a sourness kind of thing. And I think honestly, the lack of thicker paper is allowing the taste of the tobacco to shine all that much more. I do think I might have almost let this go out. It's back though, it's back. We're all good. We are all good. Yeah. This is surprisingly normal, though. This is a surprisingly normal experience. I was expecting it to be a little bit more tarry. I was expecting the tobacco to maybe have a little bit more of a tarry taste itself, but I'm not really getting the impression that the tobacco itself is giving me a tarry taste. It's just the filter, in all honesty. Yeah. I know American Spirit has some roll your own varieties that I have not tried yet. I haven't tried any American Spirit roll your own varieties yet. I need to. But I'm thinking if they made a full-bodied red American Spirit roll your own variety, I might enjoy it. Because honestly, this low-key tastes kind of similar to Amberleaf from Ireland. Amberleaf from Ireland, for context, is a very, very, very popular rolling tobacco that is very good and very strong and very enjoyable. Now, this stuff is definitely not as strong as Amberleaf, but it has a mildly similar taste, and it's really good as a whole. I'd buy a pouch of American Spirit Full Body Red rolling tobacco, I ain't gonna lie, I definitely would, yeah. This is not bad at all. This is not an interesting experience in the way I was expecting it to be. I think I can say that. I was expecting this to be interesting because I was expecting the cigarette itself to taste different because it was half smoked. And while that is still true, because this cigarette does taste a little bit more tarry than it would normally, just because it's a half smoked cigarette and I'm using the filter that was already from that half smoked cigarette. But still, other than that, there really aren't any major differences because it's a half-smoked cigarette in my personal opinion. The major difference really is just the fact that I'm using a different paper, and the taste of the tobacco has changed a little bit because of the lack of the thicker paper from the prepackaged cigarette, which is not at all what I was expecting. Not at all what I was expecting. Wow. Very, very, very interesting. Very, very, very interesting. Huh. I'm also getting a little bit buzzed. I am feeling a little bit buzzed. I smoked another half of a cigarette. I hope I just kicked the table by accident. I smoked another half of a cigarette before this video. And since I forgot to grab a little bit of a screenshot, I'm thinking I might have to break that cigarette as well and re-roll it into a new cigarette again. Because honestly, this is not a bad experience at all. And honestly, I don't mind accidentally breaking another cigarette. I did accidentally break the cigarette I rolled for this one, but the other one I might just accidentally break for a screenshot because I forgot to get a thumbnail for this video, which is a little bit of an issue if I do say so myself. But, yeah. Well, I was pretty disappointed when I first saw that I broke that cigarette. But honestly, now, looking back on it, I'm kind of glad I did. Because if I hadn't accidentally broken that cigarette, and I said I did actually accidentally break that cigarette. For the thumbnail, I'm going to be purposely breaking a cigarette, but this cigarette actually did accidentally break. But looking back on it, I'm actually glad I accidentally broke it, because I wouldn't have had this experience and I wouldn't have realized how much the paper in the prepackaged American Spirit Reds is affecting the taste of the cigarette itself. It's not like I'm getting a really distinguishable paper taste that's ruining my smoking experience when I'm smoking American Spirit Full Body Red, but it's a different smoke. It's different. Not entirely so, but different enough to keep me intrigued. I will admit, though, this cigarette, though, is getting much more tarry than it would usually get if I was just smoking a normal cigarette and getting towards the end of it. Part of that might just be due to the fact that I'm using a different paper, and part of that might be due to the fact that this is an already used filter. That would not surprise me either way. It wouldn't surprise me if it's either of those. In all honesty, I'm getting a little bit buzzed right now. This cigarette's getting me surprisingly buzzed, if I do say so myself. But, yeah, not too bad. Sweetness just keeps coming through more and more and more distinctly. It's really nice. It's really nice, yeah. The taste of the tobacco itself is still a little bit different. And the tarry taste is, yeah, just coming from the filter. Interesting. Interesting. I ain't gonna lie. This is a very intriguing experience, if I do say so myself. This is a very intriguing experience, if I do say so myself, and one that I am enjoying quite a bit. While that went out, I think I'm going to go and get my lighter out of my pocket. I'm going to try to smoke the rest of this cigarette. But I don't think I have that much more left anyway. I'm going to try to smoke the rest of it anyway. Can't be letting any tobacco go to waste after all. But I do think now that's all I had to the cigarette. So I'm going to go ahead and just stuff it on the ground and make sure I don't cause no fires or anything like that kind of thing. Just make sure it's all stubbed out. And now that I have done that, I do suppose it's now time for me to quickly give you guys my final thoughts on this experience. So, how was this experience where I re-rolled a half-smoked broken cigarette into a new cigarette and smoked it? Well, it was surprisingly different than I was expecting. And it was a surprisingly interesting experience in a different way than I was thinking it was going to be. I was thinking the cigarette was going to be a little bit more tarry in general, not just because of the filter that I used from the half-smoked cigarette, but also just because of the tobacco itself being already from a half-smoked cigarette. But the tobacco itself really did not give me any more of a tarry taste, I'm feeling like. I really do feel like it was all coming from the filter itself, and that if I hadn't used that half-used filter, that I would have no issues. And that I would have had no issues at all, and it would have just been like a normal cigarette. But having rolled the American Spirit Full Body Reds into a new cigarette was a much more interesting experience than not as a whole, because it made me realize just how much of an effect the paper taste from the prepackaged American Spirit Full Body Reds really do have on the taste of the cigarette. And I got a little bit of a different taste from re-rolling the half-smoked cigarette into a new cigarette. Yeah, very interesting. If I accidentally break a cigarette again, would I do this again? Yeah, 100%. I would do this again. And I think this is a good way to ensure that you get your money's worth out of your tobacco products. If you accidentally break one, re-roll into a new cigarette. Ain't no harm, you know what I'm saying? Ain't no harm. Why wait? Why wait? Get my words all jumbled up. Why let good tobacco go to waste? Why let good tobacco go to waste? So, don't let good tobacco go to waste. Smoke the rest of it. and re-roll it into a new cigarette. That's what I'm saying at least. That's what I'm saying at least. This is not a bad experience at all. Wow, this was very interesting. I certainly hope you guys have found this video where I re-rolled a broken cigarette, a half-smoked broken cigarette into a new cigarette and smoked it. I certainly hope you guys have found this video interesting in any way, shape, or form and everything like that kind of thing. Certainly hope you guys have enjoyed watching this video. If you guys have enjoyed watching this video, of course, please make sure to, like and subscribe for more content. I think I got my words all jumbled up at the very end of the video. I'm getting my words all jumbled up. Certainly hope you guys have enjoyed watching this video. I don't think I have anything else to say, though. As said, like, subscribe, check out my Instagram, my book, my merch, my P.O. box, and my second channel, all in the description down below. All my stuff is linked on my website. Go check it out. And, yeah, I think that's all I had to say. Interesting experience. Different than I was thinking it was going to be. That is for sure. To the next one, y'all. Stay safe and peace, and have a great one. Yes, sir, you know what I'm saying?